Thanks, Savannah. You're tuned into BYU-Idaho Radio on KBYI 94.3 FM. I'm Natalia Dyer, and on this episode of Weekdays, I interviewed Mo Reynolds, a professional storyteller who's helping educators embrace the art of storytelling in their classrooms. You are wanting to get storytelling more into the classroom, so tell me what that looks like on your end and what you've been preparing as far as the curriculum.
Yeah, so I do a lot of storytelling in schools as connected to my festival work. Whenever I travel for a storytelling festival, they usually also have us go to schools. And then I've done school performances here and there as well, just independently. But I really wanted to create a regular space where storytelling could be a part of a classroom or homeschool or just family routine. I think stories carry such a potent source of imagination and connection and conversation. So I've had the Miss Mo Storyteller YouTube and podcast channels for a while. That's how I got started in storytelling, actually, was on my YouTube channel. And then as I pivoted and started getting a lot more live work, I kind of stopped posting things on those channels because I had festivals and things to get ready for. But as we wrapped up our travels and I was coming back and sort of deciding what way I wanted to go, I still will pursue festivals. That's going to always be a part of my work. But I also wanted to sort of see how I could more regularly perform stories and have people hear them more regularly. And I decided to go back to where I started, which was the YouTube channel. So every month we visit a different country. So for the month of April, I've been telling stories from Japan. And then next month we'll tell stories from Peru. And so every week there's an episode. I keep them no longer than 15 minutes because families and classrooms are busy places. So I tell a story, I ask a few discussion questions, and then I have this newsletter called The Storytelling Teacher. And every week I send out a lesson plan to those who have subscribed to The Storytelling Teacher that goes with the episode of the week. And it has additional discussion questions that are geared towards different age groups depending on what level their kids are at. And then there's always one hands-on activity that connects with the story of the week. And I wanted it to be sort of a cross-curriculum opportunity to use the story. So for instance, today's story that went up out in the email was about clouds and spiders. And so the activity was creating 3 different kinds of clouds with cotton balls on construction paper. And I just set it out really clearly. Here's the materials needed, here's the objective, here's how to use the story, here's some discussion questions. So what I want it to be is just sort of an open up, and teachers have something every week they can use that brings storytelling into their classroom, but also touches on other subjects, and it's hands-on and it's creative and connective, but really, really simple for them to insert. So the whole using the video standalone is 15 minutes, but if they want to do the lesson plan, that's designed to sort of take about 30 minutes total.
Awesome.
And my goal is to just get it to as many classrooms or homeschools or living rooms as possible.
Wonderful. And people can start where you are. They don't need to necessarily go back in time and find lesson number 1, or how does that work?
No, they don't really build on each other at all. So they can start wherever they want. And eventually there will be lots of different countries and they'll be organized into playlists. And so they can access the videos at any time if it matches a certain country they're already studying or something they're already doing. So yeah, it's not like a series. Each week is a standalone. Now the lesson plans go out each week, and the lesson plans are stored on my Patreon page. So that is something that if you're coming in late and you want to get the lesson plans, then you would have to subscribe to my Patreon page, and that's where they're all archived. But if you just want to access the videos, they'll be available anytime on YouTube or on podcast, the Miss Mo Storyteller podcast.
Wow. And is this all free, or some of it a part of your Patreon?
It's all free. The videos are all free, and the weekly email lesson plan is free. The only thing that is if you become a paid subscriber on Patreon, then it's sort of like you have access to the full history of the lesson plans. So if you want to have access to all of the lesson plans and all of the videos without any ads, then that would be paid on Patreon. But if you just want the videos are free. And if you subscribe to the Storyteller Teacher newsletter, you get the free lesson plan for that week, each week. And then you can just save them and use them as you want. But the paid level is just if you want to have access to them without ads, and if you want to be able to pull up any lesson plan easily from the past.
Wow, awesome. So I've seen you perform live before, and it was an incredible experience, and you can command a stage. Why do you feel like it's important for children to learn these aspects of storytelling?
I think the one element that our children need more than anything right now is imagination. Imagination is the key to pretty much every successful habit in life. I think faith takes imagination. Kindness takes imagination. We have to have an imagination to think, how could this other person be feeling right now? Why do you think this person did this? How can I forgive this person? Everything good takes imagination. God is a creator, and our earth is this beautiful evidence of his imagination. And stories cultivate and spark imagination. And then what follows is conversation, and it's what if, and how about this, and when have I done this, and how can I do this? And stories are more than just these adventurous little whimsical adventures. I think they're fire for the imagination, which then becomes how we connect, how we believe, how we create, how we show up in life. And imagination is something that we desperately need to have empathy and respect and faith and hope.
I love that. Why would you say storytelling stands apart from just a regular public speaking event or something of that nature? What does storytelling have that other types of public speaking doesn't?
I think storytelling carries a capacity for someone to see themselves more deeply in the life of someone else. And if I'm just standing up and I'm sharing my thoughts, my opinions, they could be really thought-provoking and eloquent, and people might applaud me and think, that's really great insight she has. But if I share a story, whether it's a folktale or a personal narrative or a braiding of both, then suddenly the audience isn't just hearing my opinion, they're transported into a story that sparks their own memory and says, oh, I had an aunt like that once. Or even a folk or a fairy tale of, a villain that's a bear. They might think, oh, I had a bear in my life once. And suddenly it's not just me speaking and them listening. It's this circular experience where they're seeing themselves in the story. They're opening their hearts to revelation, even if it's not in a church scenario, but they're opening themselves up to learning, to seeing, to imagining in a different way than if it's just someone standing up and sharing facts and figures, even in a really eloquent, funny, or entertaining way. Story opens up a different muscle of empathy, and seeing ourselves in the stories of others help us realize how much we have in common with other humans.
What are 3 aspects of storytelling that you hope children will take away?
It's a really good question. I would want them to take away imagination, letting themselves think and dream and ponder and create in their brains and what follows that. I want children to feel loved and seen, even though they're looking at me up on a screen. And hopefully I can visit a lot more classrooms in person through this opportunity, but I want them to feel really loved and valued and inspired by kindness. And I want them, the third thing would be, I want them to talk to the adults in their lives and listen to their stories. I always try to end with a question and a challenge to say, go ask grandma or grandpa about this. Go ask your mom, ask someone to tell you a story today. Or what does this remind you of in your story, and tell someone else your story. I want to spark memories and moments where families or teachers or kids turn to each other and say, that reminded me of this, that reminded me of that. Or they go and ask grandma and grandpa, hey, what was your kindergarten like? What was something you were afraid of and you did anyway? It's so, when we lose people, we lose their stories. And I want that habit to be created in children. So imagination, love, and connection with other people's stories would probably be the three top
Yeah, wonderful.
goals.
How long have you been a storyteller for?
That's an interesting question. How long have I been being paid for it is probably, I started my YouTube channel in 2016, and I thought at the time that I was inventing storytelling, that I had just created this really cool art. And then I realized it was already in full force, and there was this whole world of storytelling. And my first time being a featured storyteller was in 2020 at the Florida Storytelling Festival. And then I grew from there on the festival scene, going to the National Storytelling Festival twice and the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival. I'll be there again in September. Wow. But as a human, I think I've been a storyteller a lot longer than I realized. I remember we lived on a farm in North Carolina growing up, and I would go out into the woods a lot and just talk to myself and kind of make up stories. So I've been a paid storyteller for, I guess, about 10 years, but definitely a lifetime of storytelling brought me to this moment. And then when God led me to this opportunity, I was ready to fully step into it. And I didn't even realize how long I had been a practicing storyteller.
Wow. Is there one person in your life who ignited this passion inside of you that you can think of, or has it just always been there?
My dad was a really good storyteller. He had an ability, he was really captivating, he was really funny, and I didn't make that connection until much later. I was writing some stories about him. He left my mom when I was 19 and remarried, and we were sort of estranged for a very long time. And then at the end of his life, we welcomed him. He lived next to us. He was suffering with dementia, and we were able to have a lovely few years with him before he passed away. And he didn't really remember who I was, but he knew I was his friend. And it was a lovely moment of healing. And as I was working on some stories about that experience to perform, I reflected more on my dad and realized he was a great storyteller. It wasn't an art I knew about. It wasn't the festivals where none of us knew any of those things, but he would have been great. He was a really dynamic storyteller. And so as the gift within me, I think genetically and growing up, it came from my dad. But no one has been a bigger fan of my storytelling than my mom. And we discovered it together. We discovered the Storytelling Center in Tennessee together. She and I went to the first festival I ever went to together. She brought me peach jelly belly jelly beans at every performance of everything I've ever done, even to the National Storytelling Festival. She made sure it was delivered there when she couldn't come. And so I don't know that I have a bigger storytelling fan than my mom, who was always there and always believed in me. And I was always her favorite storyteller at every festival.
Well, I can see why. You are I'm so enamored when you're on stage. I just was so blown away the first time I saw you perform. And I think everyone just was so captivated by your story. So you definitely have a gift for it. Absolutely. What would you say makes a good storyteller?
I think a good storyteller is really true to themselves, and they trust their audience and they trust the story. And a good storyteller tells stories not to impress, but to have fun. And they pick the stories that speak to them. They tell the stories that they would want to hear if they were in the audience. And they're just really themselves and not trying to be anyone else. And it took me a long time to stop trying on the voices of other storytellers. And I think that's a part of the process. I would see a storyteller and think, oh, I'd like to sound like that. And that didn't sound right. Trying their voice on, and then that didn't sound right. But it took me a while to find my own voice and to trust it. And I think good storytellers trust their voice, they trust the story, and they trust their audience. And they don't need a lot of extra emotional manipulation or a lot of other things. At the heart of it, it's just humans love a good story. And a good storyteller trusts that principle and trusts their audience and listens to their audience with listens to what their audience is saying with their body, with their energy, with how they're sitting. They're in tune with the audience that's in front of them. They're not just reciting a memorized piece, but they're having this circular experience with the audience that's in the room with them at that time.
Great. So is the academic route going to be, I guess, where you're spending most of your time with storytelling, or is it still going to be travel and telling your own story?
Yeah, it's going to be a mix of both. So the main arenas that I'm going to focus on are the festivals. I hope to do 10 to 15 festivals a year. We were traveling, so that sort of slowed down, obviously, but I'm rebuilding into the festival world. I love the festivals. Those are the dessert of a storyteller. The audiences are easy. You get to see your friends. It's just I have all these wonderful storytelling friends. I love the festivals. So I definitely want to keep those apart. The Storytelling Teacher and the Miss Mo Storyteller podcast and YouTube channel, that is sort of my weekly project that I hope will turn into school residencies. So I want to be able to visit more schools and say, okay, I'm going to be in your school for 2 days. Here's what I can offer. Here are the performances. Here are the workshops I can do for all the different grade levels. And then do teacher trainings. I really want to come into districts and train teachers on how to use storytelling in the classroom to deliver content and to build community. And then the third tier is workshops and coaching. So I'll be offering a workshop online in July for teachers as they gear up for school, how to use storytelling in their classroom. So I'll be doing quarterly workshops and then private coaching for people who want to improve their own stories. So those are the three main directions: festivals, the storytelling teacher work, and workshops and coaching.
Great. Can you tell people where to find you online?
Yeah, so my website's moreynolds.com. It's pretty easy. Instagram, I'm Miss Mo Reynolds. And my website takes you to all of the different platforms. The storytelling, there's a page on there about the Storytelling Teacher where you can subscribe to the newsletter if you want. And then you can also, it takes me to the YouTube channel and the Spotify. So my website kind of is the conduit for all the other projects.
Great. Anything else that you would like to add?
No, I'm just so grateful for this time to spread the word. And I encourage everyone to tell stories and to ask if you have a grandmother, grandfather, mother, father alive, then please call them, text them, email them, and ask them to tell you a story and record it in some way.
That was Mo Reynolds, a professional storyteller, and I'm Natalia Dyer. Thanks for joining us on another episode of BYU-Idaho Radio's Weekdays. Savannah McCauley had this hour's music, and I had today's interview. Join us tomorrow for another episode of Weekdays at noon and 6 on KBYI 94.3 FM.